welcome back to Mika Reacts and Reviews. React and review to things on the internet. And today we are going to be reacting to sort of a compilation of Morgan Freeman, Lil Wayne, Denzel Washington, and others on racism. And what we can learn from this. So this is going to be a thought piece or a conscious piece, and that's just to say that this is going to be something I'm going to talk about, and it's going to be a discussion. So for those who get upset because people pause things, you can exit and then come to another video. This also is going to be a racially dense video. So again, if that's something that you're just like, look, I'm not into, that's fine. Please return when I put up another video that's just pure entertainment. I'm going to have a diverse group of videos on this channel as we move forward, and there'll be half or mostly entertainment, breaking down songs and things on the internet, but there will be thought pieces on this channel because I'm a thoughtful person. I like having these type of discussions, and I'm doing this video particularly because I do want to, like, it's kind of like my lifelong goal is to break this narrative that black people are a monolith and we all think the same, because that's sort of the mainstream narrative that's being put out there, and I want to break that. And I also think it's detrimental to the younger generation of not just black people but in society in general, to grow up with these ideas that everyone who looks like this thinks this way and everyone who looks like that thinks this way. And so let's get right into it. I'm gonna try my best not to pause it so much because I actually do not want to make this too long, but I can't make any promises. All right.
Do you think that race plays a part in wealth distribution, or either a mindset that you can't or
Today?
cannot? Yeah.
No.
You don't?
No, I don't. I don't. Hey, you and I, we're proof. Why would race have anything to do with it? Put your mind to what you want to do and go for that. It's kind of like religion to me. It's a good excuse for not getting there.
Where are we in the United States of...
I 100% agree when people say it's God's will or God is testing me, or only lean on God to get things done instead of putting any effort into themselves. It can make someone codependent on that and make them kind of just lazy and as an excuse. And I do think blaming a system or blaming white people or blaming history or blaming your mommy, your daddy, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whoever, is just an excuse not to be held accountable, responsible for your own actions, whether those be achievements or failures. And it's detrimental not only to yourself but the people around you in your community.
Where are we in the United States of America in race relations and what you see from day to day in your life?
Skip, they wouldn't want to ask me that. They wouldn't want my answer to represent it, because God knows I have been nothing but blessed. My whole path, these 33 years have been nothing but a blessing. I have never, never is a strong word, I've never dealt with racism, and I'm glad I didn't have to.
Now, Lil Wayne is definitely not the best example, but it doesn't mean just because you're not perfect or you have flaws doesn't mean you don't have anything to say. And I really do think, like, gratitude is the foundation of joy. Like, when you take an inventory of your life, and if society tells you there's nothing good about your life because you're just perpetually oppressed and a victim, so every time you take an inventory of your life, there's nothing good of it. So then you just walk around angry, bitter, upset, with a chip on your shoulder. But when you have gratitude, you can be thankful for your life. So when you take an inventory of your life, even if you don't have much, you can find things to be grateful for, which instills in you joy. And so I think recognizing the blessings you have, recognizing even the privileges you have, is a sign of maturity, and it helps you become a more joyful person and have a peace of mind. It doesn't mean to ignore the bad things, but it just doesn't do you any good to only see the bad in your life, and it doesn't do you any good to ignore the bad either, but you just have a balanced point of view. And I will not say the same thing that I've never dealt with racism, because I definitely have, but it's such a minute and tiny degree that is almost not even worth mentioning, and it's never been to a point that has ever stopped me with in any way trying to achieve the things that I wanted to do. If it was any college, if it was any job, if it was anything that I ever pursued, I got what I wanted. My race never stood in the way, nor was my gender or my sexuality or my religion or anything like that. If I didn't achieve something, it's because I didn't try hard enough, or I didn't have the knowledge, the tools, or the education to do so. It had nothing to do with anything else.
And I'm glad I didn't have to.
There is a class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs. There is a certain class of race problem solvers who don't want the patient to get well. That was said by Booker T. Washington.
I'm not going to go into that. You need to like rewind and watch that again, because that was such a deep thing. And if you want to make it, like if you want to dumb it down, it's just to say race hustlers or race baiters. People who literally make their living off of perpetuating an idea that racism is the number one cause or problem in a country. Because if it goes away, then they will not have a job anymore. They won't have a platform anymore. So they have to keep it going, like a pharmaceutical company that needs to keep you on the pills so you keep coming back to give them more money. That is such a deep statement, and Booker T. Washington made that statement, a great black man. He made that how long ago, and it's still a problem today.
How are we going to get rid of racism until...
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man.
You know, it's frustrating to me that people...
I did a little bit of research right around when towards the end of Obama's presidency about racism in the United States. And it was actually a lot of research that came out and said that racism was actually kind of going down because of the integration of communities, right? There's integration of communities, and when it comes to neighborhoods and schools and jobs and universities, and it's easier to be racist or have stereotypes against a whole community of people when you're very isolated from that community of people. But people were no longer isolated from one another, and were being integrated in each other's lives, and that was breaking down those stereotypes and breaking down sort of that racism, that racist tension. But because there's race baiters and race hustlers that make a living off of racism, they needed to stir that shit back up, because if they don't, then they lose their job, and different people in politics will lose their positions. And so just keep bringing it back up, change the definitions of racism and bigotry and homophobic and all those things, say words are violence, continue to move the goalposts, so racism and hatred and bigotry and all those things that scare people will continue to persist, so they continue to act like your saviors and to continue to make money off of you.
You know, it's frustrating to me that people take race and they make it personal. You know what I mean? Like we're at a loss in this generation. If you look at it in the 80s, Archie Bunker was a stark racist. Stark. If you don't know who Archie Bunker is, look him up. All in the Family. Anyway. Great show. The Jeffersons, stark racist. Fred Sanford, stark racist. But you know what black people and white people did? They laughed. You watch 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. Both of them hated each other because he was black and because he was white. You know what they did?
Thank you. Laughter is supposed to be healing, right? Laughter is supposed to heal things, heal pain. And guess what now is happening? They're trying to cancel comedians. They're trying to get rid of jokes. You know? So, like, that's extremely true. And rest in peace. This is the guy who passed away from Black Panther, so rest in peace. And that's very true. We were able to look at that together, white, black, or whatever, and laugh at the absurdity of what racism really looked like and what it was.
I was with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. Both of them hated each other because he was black and because he was white. You know what they did? They laughed.
But I asked you what the racial breakdown was of your audience. Do you remember this? And you told me the only black face you could see in the whole audience was your makeup artist. I believe that's what you said, and she was in the front row, right? A lot of white kids love rap.
Yes.
Explain that. What does that say to you? What's the message of it? What's the bigger picture of it?
I don't want to be bashed because I don't want to sound like I'm on the wrong if there is a side, but I thought that was clearly a message that there was no such thing as racism. That's what I thought that was.
You know, I said, and it's probably get me in trouble, but I said to some of my colleagues recently, so I know that it's an issue, but it seems like every single day on television I'm talking about race, and it's because of the news cycle.
Can we just stop and talk about the grift that Don Lemon has done in the last 4 years? What he just said now, he would not say today, saying that we are talking about racism because it's constantly in a news cycle. That is the reason why. And he's getting sick of it, and is overkill. He wouldn't say that today. Don Lemon used to actually have a lot of common sense talking points 4 years ago that are now considered right-wing talking points that he won't say today because the grift pays.
News, but sometimes I get so tired of talking about it. I want to just go, this is over. Can we move on?
And if you talk about it, it exists.
Right.
Yeah. It's not like it exists and we refuse to talk about it. But making it...
I just want to say really quick that I've said this before on my channel. Racists, if you're a racist, racists are some of the most pathetic, unevolved, low consciousness human beings on the planet. Why are we giving them so much clout? Why do we give them so much attention? If someone makes a racist fucking statement on the internet, fucking ignore it. Why are you giving it so much smoke? If I walked outside right now and some guy was screaming he hates black people, I would avoid him, but that's all I would do is avoid him. I'm not gonna go, hey everybody, look at this guy, he's racist, giving him more attention than he deserves. It's stupid, it's idiotic. Why are we doing it?
And right now, we are in a society where we can't have a conversation because no one's willing to listen.
People are just shouting.
People are just
Whatever
shouting. People are walking down the street, hashtagging everything, but no one's listening.
Using wrong
On both
examples
sides.
to present an argument leads us nowhere forward. I understand the emotion and I respect my opposition, but when you go into the areas of making false charges and living in the past, you do not address the issues of the present.
Because it's easier to do that. It's easier to say that teachers are racist, the reason why black boys in some urban communities have a very high rate of illiteracy. Oh, the teachers are just racist. Then actually tackle the issue of illiteracy. To actually fix that problem, that takes a lot more work and effort. It's easy to just go, they're racist, and then walk away. That's the reason why. And plus, the more you look backwards, is the harder it is to move forward. So to keep people stuck in place and not moving anywhere is to continually tell them to look back, to look back, to look backwards. That's why Black History Month is nothing but look back, look at their travesty, look back, look at the hardship, look back, look at their oppression, instead of celebrating the achievements that black people have made today.
And, you know, incarceration rates in America has been a problem, especially as opposed to minorities. And Roman delves into the issues around the legal system. Do you think we've made any headway in the
I
legal
think it's more important to make headway in our own house. By the time the system comes into play, the damage is done. They're not locking up 7-year-olds.
In the 1960s, 80 plus...
Oh my God. Yes. 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 That is so freaking true. People act like, oh, these kids were just raised perfectly and a system came up and just messed them up. Like, that's not how it happens. If you raise your kids right and raise them with common sense and being a critical thinker and being respectful and know how to, you know, take care of themselves and be self-sufficient, accountable, responsible, then the system's not going to just go and screw them over. I'm not saying life will be perfect for them. Life is unfair. That's just life. Accept it. But, and I want to bring this up as well, and its rate is going up in a very scary rate in a white community, so don't be acting smug here. So over 70% of black homes are ran by single mothers. 70%. If you want to understand why that has such a devastating effect on the black community and why a lot of our issues are rooted in that, why don't you go just Google the side effects of the effects of people being raised by single mothers or being raised without a father or being raised by a single parent. Go look it up. And you will understand that. Why the overwhelming amount of men in prison have no father or do not know their father. Go look that up. Why that's a big deal. And it's rising scarily in the white community because of the narrative now and because of feminism and stuff like that. But it's been pretty awful in the black community for a really long time when we actually had racism and we actually had segregation back in the 50s and 60s. It was like 17%, maybe almost 20%, and that was even a really high number back then. But the black community was actually surpassing the white community when it came to suburban families, middle class, and with 2-parent homes. And then the government came in and fucked that up. All right, let's continue.
In the 1960s, 80+% of blacks were 2-parent homes. Today, that is reversed completely the other way.
I was in Chicago a couple of 3-4 weeks ago, and we saw these little kids on bikes with masks on the side of their head, like 5 or 6 of them. And the driver said, yeah, they're little yummies. I said, who? He said, little yummies. Look up, Google Little Yummy. Little Yummy was an 11-year-old murderer.
Wow.
And you look at his picture, you'll see the headshot of him, and he's like this. And he got murdered at 11 by a 14-year-old.
Wow.
Who's doing life now, and a 16-year-old.
It makes no sense.
You blame the system? Where was his father?
No one wants to talk about perception when it comes to racial profiling. No one wants to talk about stereotypes when it comes to racial profiling.
Blacks are convinced.
Perception and stereotypes. Yes. First of all, there are stereotypes about black people. But the thing that no one talks about is the fact that black people perpetuate those own stereotypes. When you say as a black person, that style is ours, that hairstyle is ours, that music is ours, that culture is ours, that clothing is ours, you are saying to the rest of the world, everything else is not. And so you're telling the rest of the world that this is black and that is not. You can't get mad at someone like that who's not black stereotyping you when black people themselves stereotype black people. When a black person talks intelligent or articulate, when black people are into something that's considered white, they're called warrior or white, or you're trying to act white. When a black person has white friends, you're trying to act white. So you're basically telling the world, this is ours and that is yours, and therefore the stereotype, it doesn't always come from movies and music and stuff like that. It comes from our own rhetoric. So stop doing that and don't get upset when other people stereotype you. Like, it's ridiculous. And perception is also, and I don't say perception is your reality, but just because your perception is reality doesn't make it fact. You can perceive something to be racist doesn't mean it is racist. You can perceive something to be racist because that is the narrative that you've been fed.
Profiling.
Blacks are convinced that the number one issue facing the country right now is social justice, racist white cops, discrimination, systemic racism, microaggression, whatever new word they come up with, and it's a bunch of nonsense.
This is what I know. I'm a certified scuba diver. My first day of class, they told me this. When you're in shark-infested waters, everything in that water is considered a threat until proven otherwise. If it's a guppy, it could be a shark until you know it's a guppy. And I think as black men, we need to realize we're in shark-infested waters. And if we don't sit our young men down and we don't talk to them about perception, if we don't talk to them about stereotypes, we're doing them a...
When he talks about a perception, I think he's coming from a place of, if someone perceives you as a threat because of your mannerisms, because of the way you walk or talk, the way you dress, maybe you're got a bunch of tattoos and stuff like that, you have to understand the way people perceive you. Does that mean it is fair? No, but that's just reality. It doesn't mean that they have a right to do anything to you or cross any boundaries, but you have to be an adult about it and realize and understand what is perception. If a cop pulls you over and you're acting really agitated and weird and being all loud and not following any rules and not putting your hands on the steering wheel and looking all shifty, you have to understand the perception that is coming through from the other person. Doesn't mean their perception is correct, but you have to be an adult about it and realize that that's how you're being perceived.
Huge disservice.
It starts in the house. It starts in the home. And yeah, well, my father got locked up. Well, where was his father?
Yeah.
You know, like I did talk about my three closest friends, and they did, 15 to 25. One did 28, this and that. I was the only one of the three that had a father in my life, even though my parents were together. But I still had a father who was a gentle man and a good example, and they didn't. We can blame the system if we want, but they didn't lock any of us up at 7.
Yeah.
We were all doing enough to get locked up. At 13, my parents sent me in another direction. They didn't have anybody to help them, and they kept doing what they was doing, and the system got them. So I don't, the system is rigged, but why? All the more reason not to help it.
It's a number.
Exactly. Exactly. There is no evidence to show that if a black person is raised in a 2-parent home, a middle-class home, economically okay home, basically, of 2 parents being raised, that goes to school, gets a job, wait to get married, to have kids, don't have too many kids that you cannot financially afford, that their life is any less than any white person who follows the same path. A lot of this inequality that people talk about is economic inequality. If you grow up in poverty, if you grow up in a gang-ridden, drug-ridden community where the fathers aren't home and the mothers are struggling, it doesn't matter if you're white or black. You're going to have a very similar amount of difficulties getting out of that and making a life for yourself than a person who grew up in a middle-class neighborhood with 2 parents, a good school, went to college or didn't go to college, but at least waited till they're married to have kids and didn't have too many kids that they could not financially afford. Your path is going to be the same. It's an economic thing. It's not a black or white thing. It's a poverty thing.
Help it.
The number one problem domestically facing this country is a breakdown of the family. And President Obama said it. I didn't. A black kid, or kid, not just a black kid, a kid raised without a dad is 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crimes, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. So you're far more likely to end up in jail without having a dad than you are because of a white racist cop.
Barack Obama did say that. You can look it up. You can probably YouTube it right now. But if Trump says that, he's a racist.
Prime example, I got pulled over by the police, come over to my window, flash his light in my face, hand on my pistol. I can handle that 2 ways. I can start yelling and screaming and tell him he a racist and he don't know me. You doing this wrong. Or I can say, yes, officer, no, officer, or we done, officer. And both of them are going to have drastically different outcomes.
I was right when I talked about his idea of perception. I was right.
Half the homicides in this country are committed by and against black people. Last year there were 14,000 homicides, not talking about suicides, I'm talking about homicides. Half of them were black, 96% of them black on black of that 7,000. Where's the Black Lives Matter people on that?
What happens with young...
I'm not going to even get into the Black Lives Matter. That's a whole different video.
Black Lives Matter people on that.
What happens with young black men, everything is susceptible to the question of your manhood. And what's going on in these streets ain't got nothing to do with my manhood.
Interesting.
If I'm gonna fight a police, I'm gonna fight him in a controlled environment, a court of law. I'm not gonna fight him on the streets.
In Baltimore, where Freddie Gray was killed, Freddie Gray died in a van, I shouldn't say was killed, died in a van.
Yeah.
You have a city that's 45% black. City council is 100% Democrat. The majority of city council is black. The top cop at the time was black. The number 2 cop was black. The majority of the command staff is black. The mayor is black. The AG is black. And yet here we are talking about racism. I mean, it's absurd.
All cops aren't bad cops. 99% of cops are really good dudes and women.
A lot of Democratic ran cities are ran by black people. But every time election comes around, they just blame racism for the failure of their cities.
I mean, it's absurd.
All cops aren't bad cops. 99% of cops are really good dudes and women. 99% of the people I've met that are cops are dope. I have a lot of friends that are cops. But that 1%, that's the problem. And you want to give yourself every opportunity not to end up a statistic.
965 people were shot by cops last year and killed. 4% of them were white cops shooting unarmed blacks. In Chicago in 2011, 21 people were shot and killed by cops. In 2015, there were 7. In Chicago, which is a third black, a third white, and a third Hispanic, 70% of the homicides are black on black. About 40 per month, almost 500 per year last year in Chicago, and 75% of them are unsolved. Where is the Black Lives Matter on that? The idea that a racist white cop shooting unarmed black people is a peril to black people.
And that's not to say that cops shooting unarmed black people unjustly isn't a problem. That's a problem. It's not the biggest problem. But again, these race baiters and race hustlers, it's easier to attack that problem because it's a tiny percent. It's harder to attack 70% of black on black crime in only one state. This was just Chicago, I believe, that he's mentioned. Now, race on race crime is not unique. White people kill white people. Hispanic people kill Hispanic people. That is not unique. It's just the percentage that is in the black community.
Is BS.
Black History Month you find ridiculous.
Why? You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? Well, come on, tell me.
Well,
His tongue died.
I'm Jewish.
Okay.
He's like, okay,
which
we're
month
gonna
is
play
Jewish History
semantics.
Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
No.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is
I don't want a Black History Month because it's just basically perpetuating the whole history. Like, it's basically just, I feel like the system refuses to let black people move on. Because it's like, remember how you were a slave? Remember that? You remember how we used to oppress you? Remember we used to attack you with dogs? You remember the fire hose? You remember segregation? You remember? Do you remember? They won't let you move on and celebrate the achievements you have today. Don't look at the achievements you have today. Don't look towards the future. Keep looking back there. You remember when we used to treat you like a piece of shit? Yeah, don't forget that. Drill that into your head and drill that into your black kids' heads too.
American history.
Abraham Lincoln, as my colleague said, fought a war to preserve the Union. That republic allowed for the people of the United States, under our Constitution, to amend it, therefore removing slavery, and then moving forward to the Voting and Civil Rights Act, and also the suffrage movement for women.
At the same time, and you would say it as strong as anyone, it's no excuse for bombing and destroying your own neighborhood. And burning down wherever it's happening. Burning down storefronts and stores that people
with mobs is how they get turned into that.
Yeah.
What's to be gained? You know, you stop for one split second to think burning and looting doesn't help you in any way.
My father was alive during the huge riot that happened in Detroit. I forget what year, but it was the historical riot that happened in Detroit. My father told me that that area wasn't the ghetto until after those riots. He said, yes, there are issues, there was segregation, there was racism, yeah, there was racist cops, that all existed. But the black community that they lived in. And this is when I ran out of space, memory space. But what I was saying is that my father, he was around. He experienced the historical riots that happened in Detroit. And even though there was a lot of issues in the neighborhood like racism and segregation and racist cops, he said that the neighborhood that he lived in was a good neighborhood, that it didn't become the ghetto until after the riots. It was a black-owned, black-ran, good neighborhood. The businesses were black-owned and black-ran. The homes were good homes, with two-parent homes. Good kids that went to school and had a future. And then after the riots, that is when they became the ghetto. When the businesses are torched and burned down to the ground, when the homes were destroyed, when the neighborhood was destroyed. This is the same thing that's going to happen with the summer riots, with the BLM. With BLM and Antifa. All those riots really did was perpetuate poverty and probably set people back economically a generation, because all those businesses and jobs they destroyed, the sort of the corporate ones, they're not going to come back. They're not returning. So that's taking away job opportunities for the people that live there. And I didn't see BLM come down and donate to those communities. I didn't see not one of those protesters stay behind and clean up the rubbish and clean up the ash that they created in these communities. We all saw the people in those communities tell them to go away, tell them to leave, stop destroying our communities. There's people from the outside coming in, destroying another community. So now all is done is perpetuate poverty. So I'm not saying that what happened by segregating neighborhoods and in sort of using racist tactics to keep black people from moving to nicer, whiter, in quotations, neighborhoods. That was wrong. But the narrative has always been that they segregated us and then they pushed us into the slums, basically. They pushed us into the ghettos. But for the most part, they weren't the ghetto until later on. But anyway, I don't want to go on too long. I'm not saying that I'm pro-segregation, by the way. I'm just saying the narrative has always sort of been a little bit deceiving and disingenuous. But I'm sorry, guys. It was only a few more minutes left of the main video anyway. And so maybe I'll do a part 2, but probably not. I want to end it here because the video is already going on too long. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Like, comment, subscribe. It helps with the algorithm, guys. Let me know if you like these sort of conversational videos. I enjoy them. But again, this will be still mainly kind of a light, more fun channel, I guess. You guys have an amazing, amazing day. All right, bye.
I will always continue to say that riots are socially destructive and self-defeating. I'm still convinced that non-violence is the most potent weapon available to oppress people in their struggle for freedom and justice. I feel that violence will only create more social problems than they will solve.